Okay, we're live on Facebook. Welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce Mary Ashley Mercer Bush. She's Dr. Mary Ashley Mercer Bush, and she is in residency for psychiatry. She'll talk a little bit about herself, and then we'll get into the questions in the call, as people join. But I wanted to welcome everybody to the first Zoom call. We're hosting this call on behalf of Beiersdorf. They've been very generous to FIRST, and we're really excited to get a 4-series program together, and we hope you'll join us for all 4. You'll see all the schedule on our Facebook page and on our website. We're really excited about this series, and Mary Ashley was very generous to offer her time with us tonight on this holiday in the United States. So I just wanted to let you know, if you're joining us on Facebook, you can post questions in the Facebook chat, and I'll pose them over to Mary Ashley as the time allows. If you're on Zoom with us, there's actually the chat feature down at the bottom there. And please feel free to post a question in there, and I'll be happy to share them with Mary Ashley. And let's see, here we go. I'm going to put Mary Ashley's picture up. Let's see. Okay, there's Mary Ashley. Welcome. Mary, can you say something just so make sure you're...
You guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Yes, there you go. So kick it off.
Okay.
We're happy to have you.
Awesome. I'm happy to be here, guys. So my name is Mary Ashley Mercer. Newly named Dr. Mercer. I'm in my first year of residency for psychiatry. I am down in Savannah, Georgia, originally from Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Went to undergrad, got my undergraduate or Bachelor of Science in Charleston, South Carolina, and then hopped the border over to Georgia. And that's where I am currently in my first year of residency there, hoping to become a community psychiatrist in the next couple years here. So I was diagnosed with lamellar ichthyosis when I was elementary school age by Duke University. Also went up to NIH a couple of times for some of the research because back in the day, there was just no one knew anything. Especially, and still to this day, there's very little known in the area that I lived in South Carolina, outside of the major academic centers. And then of course, FIRST is awesome, just connecting everybody, and just, that platform has been so crucial, and just understanding and kind of the treatments out there, the studies out there, and just being able to connect with people from all over. So just, I guess, a little bit about my background, again, from South Carolina. Always been interested in psychiatry, human behavior. I was a psych nerd in high school, did AP Psych. I graduated with a major in psychology, minor in neuroscience, and also did pre-med. And then I took a couple years and did some research, mostly like neuroscience kind of related research, also in substance abuse and addiction. Which was a big theme at the Medical University of South Carolina, which is where I went. They had a lot of funding for addiction research there. And so that fascinated me. So I did research for a couple years, then applied to med school, which is crazy hard, didn't get in first time, but kept going and got a couple publications, and then went to med school. So then another 4 years of my life. And had my son, Sullivan, who is going to be 3 in August. And so I took kind of like a sabbatical year, like a year off, because I didn't want to go straight into residency with like a 6-week-old. So I took a bit of a non-traditional path with that, and took a major test, like one of my board exams, and also did some research until I matched into residency, into the program I am in now. And yeah, and so I'm about to finish. I'm a month away from finishing my intern year, which is your first year of residency. And then I have 3 more years, and then I'll take my specialty boards, and then I'll be a board certified psychiatrist in the state of Georgia. And yeah, so that's my background a little bit in a nutshell. But again, happy to be here, guys. Again, just very like conversational. Any questions, anything you have. You know, I went into psychiatry because I love to talk and I also love to listen. And I love people. And so please just anything that comes to mind, there's no question that's off limits. I've heard all the things. So please, like, you know, anything you guys need, please reach out. And I don't know if, okay, please. Okay, you have that. Cool. All right, so I can see that chat.
Yeah. And I'll monitor that, Mary Ashley. I don't want you to worry about that. I'll also check it on Facebook as well, but
awesome.
Feel free to speak from your heart and your mind.
From my heart and mind. So I guess no questions at the moment. Okay, cool. I can keep talking about random things, which I'm very good at. So I've been told.
Yes.
So let's see. So I can also kind of talk about a little bit, sort of maybe dealing with mental health from my point of view, having a skin disorder. So as a child, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So I was born to be kind of bossy, and a very strong-willed, very awesome mom who really raised us to be very secure in ourselves and to kind of just stand up for ourselves and each other. And so I kind of grew up in an environment where, like, yes, I was different, but that wasn't something that ever defined me. And I also, you know, kind of was one of those people that if someone had a question, I would just, yeah, that's just the way I am. Like, you have red hair, this is my skin. Like, this is just the way I am. And so it was normalized for me at a very young age. And I always had a very, and I'm from a small town too. So everyone was just pretty much aware and educated about it. And so it was never something for me that was a problem. People understood it when it came to, you know, the elements being too hot. Like, I would have to sit down because I would get overheated easily, or, you know, if there was like certain things I had to sit out, which I'm very stubborn. And I always wanted to do everything like everybody or better than everybody, which was a problem for me. So I had to, like, you can't do that because you might die, like pass out. So I always had people around me to remind me, like, hey, you're doing too much. You need to drink some water. I'm like, okay. So I think that's a really important factor in mental health, is having that support system, having those people that that care about you and know what you need, because sometimes, you know, I don't even know what I need. And I'm, you know, just so stubborn sometimes when it comes to, like, no, you know, I know that I'm different, but I don't want to be different sometimes, you know, like sometimes I just want to be able to, like, run all those miles and do all these things, but you have to know your limits. And that's been a hard thing for me to learn throughout life, is that you just, you know, you have to know that. And so thankfully I married someone who knows my limits too, and he reminds me, and then my family as well. And so I kind of, you know, I grew up basically also being one of those very driven, like determined, like if someone says I can't do this, I'm going to do it like 10 times better. So that's that's kind of where I've gotten to where I've kind of am in life, is that, you know, I wanted to be the best at everything, and I never wanted, you know, anything to affect that. Because everyone, whether you can see it or not, has something that's challenging to them, something that, you know, is difficult. It just happens to be that mine is external, and it's something that people tend to talk about quicker, sooner rather than later, which for me, I've learned from a self-care perspective, that it actually weeds out a lot of people early on that you probably don't want in your life. Because if they're going to judge you based on the way that you look, then they're probably not the best authentic people that you would want to surround yourself with, right? You want people, you want your team and your support network to be people that want to see you succeed, that want to build you up, want to encourage you, want to be, you know, that positivity, right? To be the change that you want to see. And so I've always been very, I've always sought that out in my friend circle and my family, and people that, you know, encourage that and bring that out of me and give that back to me. And so it's kind of a sort of contagious thing. But yeah, I mean, you are who you surround yourself with and your environment. And so for me, it's just been, it's never really been something that has ever defined me. And even in medicine, I mean, surprisingly enough, I mean, So many people in medicine have no idea what it is. I mean, I went to medical school. I wasn't taught about ichthyosis at all. I've been a dermatologist a million times. They didn't even know. I mean, the other day I was at urgent care. The primary care physician died. She was like, "Oh, you have horrible eczema." And I was like, no. But so I use that as a learning opportunity. Like, hey, so this is what I have. It's very rare. You may never see it again in your career. So here you go. And so I use that as a moment to educate and bring awareness, which is the same thing I do in my field of psychiatry. And when it comes to mental health and anxiety and depression and addiction, is that I spend so much time with my patients just bringing awareness, just educating, just talking about it, normalizing it. And so I think a lot of what I've had to sort of learn and overcome from a personal standpoint from my skin condition is what I translate into my practice in mental health and psychiatry, to being, just very upfront with things and normalizing things that, this is just like anxiety, depression. I mean, we've all had experiences with that when it comes to, to addiction, to trauma, stuff like that. I mean, everyone knows somebody that's affected, and everyone's fighting their own battle. And so, my battle sometimes happens to be something that's external, that's easy for people to see. And then I have other internal battles. I deal with anxiety like a lot of people. And again, I think anxiety and depression are also these comorbid sort of conditions that come along, unfortunately, with having conditions, rare conditions that people don't really understand. And, I love to say that I love to sit here and that's my dog. He's like, he needs a lot of attention. Hold on, I have to give him a treat. Even though I'm reinforcing the wrong behavior right now, guys, but hold on one second.
No problem.
You're okay. There you go. There you go. I know. I love you too. I know. So needy. Oh gosh,
that's Zoom in 2021.
Right? That's real life, guys. This is real life.
Get it. Yeah.
Unfiltered, unedited.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I forgot what I was just saying. Something about.
Well, that's what I mean. I know with the whole mental health thing. I mean, COVID alone, we've heard from so many members that they really have struggled, even with the lack of conference, right? We had to postpone our national conference twice. And that was a big problem because people really like to see each other in person. Sometimes it's the first time they've ever met another person. What strategies did you use during COVID and during your medical school? I mean, talk about anxiety and keeping your mental health up. I'm sure you have plenty of strategies that you used.
So I know for me personally, I love to be outdoors. I love nature. I grew up on the beach, so I love the serenity of just being at the beach, the waves, salt air, all that fun stuff. So for me, I realized that, even if it's like a 15-minute walk outside, I have to get outside. Like I have to, get your vitamin D. I need fresh air. That was really, really important to me. So I would always, in med school, I lived like 15 minutes from downtown. And so I always had to drive like to and from campus, which I did intentionally because, I'd be on campus and then I wanted to remove myself from it, right? Like I'm going home, and I'm going to a different place. So I felt like I had my own personal space. And that like 15, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, could be 30 minutes. I'd listen to music, I'd like decompress. Like if it was beautiful, I'd have the windows down, I'd call my friends, like things like that. Those were really important for me to do. Also, I need the accountability or else I'll make an excuse not to do it. So I would have either a gym membership or I would do yoga, have a yoga class. And if I knew I had a class, I'd be like, okay, I got to go to it because I paid for it. And so yoga meditation has been a big thing for me. And especially now, because there's so many cool apps out there, you can do these things yourself at home. Again, it's great that you have access to it at home, but if you're like me, sometimes you can talk yourself out of it or just like turn it off. So you have to really just be mindful of like, okay, I really need to do like 5 minutes. I can shave 5 minutes out of my day and just do some meditation. And so for me, just going outside, just fresh air. I love trees. I love plants. Seeing something, sitting near a window, even if I'm going to be stuck inside all day, if I can like look out a window and like see something pretty, that like, oh, look, there's a bird. It's like enjoying his life out there and I'm stuck in here, but like it's comforting. That is helpful for me. Aromatherapy is a big thing. So like when I'm working and stuff, I have like diffusers, again, that just kind of anything to kind of like break up the monotony of the day, or like when I'm having to spend like hours doing notes or something. And then music, I love music too. And so in the morning, I try to meditate and have like a calming moment for myself, but then on the way to like work, I'm trying to like amp myself up. And so I listen to like just like, oh yeah, you can do this, like powerful music kind of stuff, just to kind of get excited for the day. And that's just kind of like my weird little ritual on top of trying to drink plenty of water, because we all need to drink more water. And one of my best friends is occupational therapist. And every time I talk to her, she's like, have you had enough water today? Are you staying hydrated? Stay hydrated. So here I am trying to like drink water. Water is very important, guys, for your mental health too. It really does. If you're dehydrated.
Even when you're saying hydrated, I completely agree with that. And also, like, your physical being is tied with your mental being, right? So your body has to be healthy too, I would suspect. Is there any suggestions you have?
Yeah, so one of my interests too is in like overall wellness and like nutritional science. And so the sort of like the gut biome too. And so when you're, eating healthy and you're feeling healthy, your mind is healthier. And so, going outside, fresh air, vitamin D, and it doesn't have to be hours like 10, 15 minutes a day. Just like, don't stare directly at the sun, or anything like that. But I mean, even indirect, just going outside, fresh air, hearing some birds, hearing some crickets, something like that. But again, drinking water, making sure you're staying away from, too much caffeine, which can be hard. So I drink caffeine, but then I drink water. So it's all about balance. It's all about balance. Or do decaf a little bit. But again, I mean, it's trash in, trash out. It's like, what am I, I try to put into my body, like what I, to be healthy, and it helps my brain operate a little bit better, even though right now it's not operating at optimum level because I've been on like vacation for 3 days and I've unplugged and it's been great. I haven't done a single thing of work. I haven't checked my email until tonight. And that's another thing that's really important too, is unplugging. So that's been a thing too. Like I have 2 phones and I have 3 computers for work, and I have, I'm like moving houses and I have all this family, and then I have my husband who like works from home and he's got all this stuff. And so it's like, sometimes it's like information overload, and it's really hard to just like remove yourself from it. But sometimes you just got to do it. And it's like amazing. It's amazing. And I know like Sunday night or the next day, I'm going to have to catch up, but then, I know for 2 days straight, like I did the most that I could and got outside and ate well and got sunshine and like, I don't know, read a book or like watched a movie or like just did nothing, which is sometimes wonderful, just to do nothing.
Yes. That's difficult too with, so many people are working from home. Yeah. And in some ways that's more difficult because you don't have that separation between work and home. And I know a lot of our members have struggled with that too. There's always a cell phone, there's always a computer, but I guess you're advocating that really you do need to separate that out and take a break.
Yeah, even if you don't want to. I've had a million different reasons, like, hey, you don't need to stop. Like, I don't even know, I'm fumbling over words here, but reasons to not go outside. Or, hey, just go check your mail. And then I end up going outside and checking my mail, and I talk to my neighbor and I like walk down the street for a second, and then I come back in and I'm just like recharged. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like going back up. Sometimes, you just need a break. I know sometimes when I'm like making a lot of mistakes, or if I'm like doing something and my mind is just wandering, I know that I'm not getting anything, I'm not being productive. So I'm like, I got to get up and do something else. So for my husband, who's had to work a lot from home too, we'll go to the parks. And because we're new to Savannah, there's so many cool parks, there's beautiful oak trees here. And so we'll just like go explore, and we'll be like, hey, let's just go try this. Let's go see this. And it ends up being like a nature walk, and it's, you know, like an hour, even if it's just like 30 minutes or an hour, it just feels like you did something with your day and you just feel recharged. And so I know I've had to do that, and I've had to force him to do that too, because he's like, oh, why don't you do this, this, and this? Because when you're at home, you can just look around and you're like, I mean, right now I'm looking at my house and I'm like, there's like 50 million things I could be doing and like I need to do. But then I, you know, kind of going back to like cognitive behavioral therapy and like mindfulness sort of stuff, is you have to realize, okay, I can't do all of those things. Are they really that important? Like right now, like let's just be present here and like let me do this one thing, or this, you know, self-care, let me go do this. And so I don't know, life is difficult. We're all just trying to figure out how to get through COVID.
Well, you know, even with, you know, there's so much talk about medications for mental health. And then, you know, you spoke about being, you know, some mindfulness exercises. You know, can you do it without medicine? Is that, you know, is that where a doctor would try, you know, that you would try some counseling rather than medicine and that kind of thing? Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no one size fits all. There's no like magic pill of medication, anything like that. To me, I'm more on the conservative side when it comes to prescribing medications, just because there's a slew of side effects and things with certain meds. But I always believe that there's other things, you know, mindfulness therapy, talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, you know, exercise is a type of therapy, yoga, those sorts of things. And it really to me is based on the patient, based on the individual, and the hobbies of the individual enjoys, and sort of tailoring that treatment to that person. For some people, they may have tried all of those things, and so medication is kind of that last resort. And for some people, medications do wonders. Unfortunately, medications, like every person can respond to medications in different ways. You know, one person can have amazing results with this and another person doesn't even touch them. A lot of that has to do with genetics and metabolism and things that we may never fully understand, at least not right now. Hopefully, like in the future, we'll understand more of that as we kind of get into that like field of neuropsychiatry, which I'm super fascinated in. But again, I think it's just a person by person like basis. It really just depends on sort of the needs of that individual, sort of the resources that they have available. For some people, you know, they can't, you know, getting in with a therapist or a psychiatrist, it could be like months and months to get in. I know there's around here, even for me, because I still believe that, you know, I'm a psychiatrist. I have a therapist and a psychiatrist, and I love them both. And it was hard for me to find anybody here. And so I actually kept both of mine from South Carolina, and thank goodness, because of telehealth and telepsych, I actually, you know, I talked to my psychiatrist and therapist through, you know, Zoom. So thanks COVID, but it actually ended up working pretty well because of the whole COVID. Everyone's so used to this that I can just chat with my psychiatrist in a different state. And so that has been a wonderful part of it. But I am a big advocate for talk therapy, just because I honestly believe that everybody could benefit from just having someone just to talk to, an advocate or just a neutral sort of person who can just listen and be your, you know, support there.
Now, I know, I mean, access to care, even for mental health, for some reason, access to care is sometimes difficult, you know, depending on your plan, or you have to go to a certain doctor. We did have a question that came in that the person said they would love to pursue counseling for low self-esteem, but they do not have the $250 for each session. You know, that's the other thing. It's expensive because a lot of plans don't cover it. Now, the question that came in, they said, is there any help through First? There is a fund that it was normally used to give people the opportunity to try different products without having to invest too much money in it. But the Bucati Fund is something that is on our website that you can look up to see if you can apply for the $250 grant. And, you know, it's obviously for care of ichthyosis, and that's the whole person. It's not just skin, it's the whole person. The mental health works into that too. So I just wanted to mention that. And then tied into what you were just talking about with telehealth, First has a tool, it's called Ichthyosis. Your doctor, so if you have a doctor that isn't that well versed in ichthyosis, as Mary Ashley mentioned, it happens a lot, you can actually have your doctor submit your case and the questions surrounding your case to our medical experts. And our medical experts consult with each other and provide feedback to your physician. So it's definitely a doctor-to-doctor tool, but that we get calls all over the world. So it's an international service. So just make sure that if your doctor does not feel comfortable or really would like to learn more, or needs to be consulted with for your particular case, don't forget to let them know that the Ichthyosis tool is available to you, so you don't have to feel alone or isolated.
And that's how long? And that's an awesome resource, Christina. I didn't even know that existed. Do you just go through the website? How do you access that?
Since you're a physician, like if you have a patient that came in and you wanted to find out more, or, we have people that have cancer and ichthyosis. We have people that, there's some medical procedure they need that they're not quite sure how it would heal, a skin graft, all that kind of thing. So on our website under medical professionals, there's a drop down and it says Ichthyosis. So you as a physician could register, just sign up with your email and password, and then you can submit a case directly through there. And our experts, our ichthyosis experts, medical and scientific advisory board members will consult and get back to you. So it's, even if you have a doctor, or you live in the middle of nowhere and nobody knows anything about ichthyosis, they still can submit the questions with your case. So that's always a good thing. So that, along with some of this mental health, there really shouldn't be reasons why you're not getting the help you need. So I just wanted to mention that. So I'm going back to Facebook just to see if there's any other questions posted there, but feel free to continue talking, Mary Ashley, while I scroll over. What was I going to say? Maybe you could talk a little bit about self-esteem, because I know we hear from our members a lot about that. Do you have any special suggestions as to how you worked through them as you were growing up? I mean, I know you said you had a strong family unit, you have a big family, and but if there's anything else you can share.
So I think for me, maintaining a very a positive sort of outlook, at least trying to spin things in a positive way. I've had a lot of, failures at some point throughout my medical career, and trying to spin that into a lesson or an opportunity for growth, or a lesson to learn, or something like that. So similar with sort of the self-esteem component, there's been lulls, ups and downs throughout, and for me, focusing on the positive things, sort of like a daily sort of affirmation. I know there was a period in my life where I was just very down and in doubt of sort of my abilities and being a physician, and all the obstacles and everything just seemed very overwhelming. And so I actually bought these daily affirmation cards from an artist on, of course, Amazon. And there are cards that you would just pull one randomly every day, and it would just talk about something very positive about yourself. And it would force me to sort of reflect and to sort of identify things about myself that I really loved, and sort of nurtured those. And so, when life throws curveballs at you, I would go back to that. And, I would really reflect on sort of the things that I had overcome, the people in my life that are amazing, and the things that, they encourage me to do, to be. And again, I've also had to weed people out of my life that weren't good for my self-esteem. people that made me doubt and question myself, or made me feel less than or inferior. You know, and as you get older, you sort of learn it's quality over quantity. You learned that, you know, the people you want to surround yourself with, they should help your self-esteem. They should help build you. They should help, you know, add to your resiliency. And if they're not, then you know what, you just move along. It was a chapter in your book, and your book is going to be long. And, you know, just keep going. You know, it's a big world out there. We only get one life. And so for me, it was like, if this isn't working, let me try something else. And then also knowing, you know, knowing when to ask for help too. I mean, there's times when, you know, I kind of got in that negative thinking mode where, I know we all battle this sometimes too, you know, as strong as I want to be. And, sometimes, you know, the things that people say, it gets to me. And depending on the day, you know, your mind can kind of just play tricks on you, and you kind of ruminate on these like negative self thoughts. And so for me, I know when I kind of get in that state. And so and people know when I am in that state because I'm not acting like me. And so then I know that, hey, I need to do something for me. I need to go for a walk. I need to go talk to my therapist. I need to go eat an amazing meal or go have a coffee by myself. And so I've surrounded myself with people who recognize that about me and encourage that and say, hey, you need to go do some yoga. You're stressed. You're not talking like you normally do, or you're not talking, you know, or you're not talking at all. And so they can tell, they can pick up on that. But I think too, you know, having that support system is very, very big. And if you don't have that support system with you now, is sort of developing that. The therapist is a great place to start with that support, your family as well. And then, you know, as you get more confident, you know, meeting people, I believe that if you put in the effort, you put in the time, that doors will open. I know in medicine too, we have this saying, you know, you fake it till you make it. And so, especially being a new doctor, there's plenty of times where I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but you just go into it like you own it and you're confident about it, and you just do the best you can, right? Because at the end of the day, you're a human being and you're just trying to survive. And so that's what I, you know, that's how it got me through. And then I ended up, you know, I kept saying, you can do it, you can do it. And then I started believing it. And then I was like, wait, I can do it. I'm, you know, so that confidence, I was kind of faking it, but then I started to believe it and it became me. And so now I feel, you know, I feel confident in my abilities, and I feel good with where I'm at in my training, and the way, you know, where my patients are and my education. But again, it takes a village. It takes the people that you surround yourself with. And also too, you know, when it comes to like what you filter in, the stimuli that you take into. So for me, I know the news stresses me out. So I limit my news, like what I see on social media, Instagram, Facebook. I only follow people that are positive. I only follow people that are inspiring to me. The negative things, people that are way too political, people that are, you know, always talking like negatively of other people, I've eliminated all of that, because as we all know, you know, sometimes you can see a post and like, it can just kind of put you in a weird mindset, you know? And so I'd rather be around, see something that's like, oh, that's great. Like, I'm so happy for this person, or that's an amazing quote, or that's a great story about someone doing something amazing and following their passion, or, oh my gosh, that's the cutest cat I've ever seen. Like, you know, or something cool like that. Those help me, you know, if I'm gonna like not do work or I'm going to play on my phone for a second, I want to make it worth my while in the sense of like recharging me and making me feel more positive, not making me feel kind of less than, and I advise most people, and I tell this to my patients too, that if you're scrolling through your like feeds and stuff and you're feeling down, you feel like you're like on Twitter or you're like, you know, on all these things forever, and you're just like, you come out of it feeling like numb or nothing, then you're doing the wrong thing. You need to like either delete some of those apps or have like one or two, or just follow people that you know are good for you. And so that takes some self-control too. What was it? Oh my gosh, TikTok. So I had to delete TikTok off of my phone completely, because I would go down the TikTok hole of like, an hour would go by and I'm like, I should have been sleeping an hour ago. And I don't know what I just looked at, like 50 videos that didn't do anything to my mind except for like numb it. And sometimes that's good and fine, but you limit it to like 5 minutes and then move along and get some sleep, or, you know, go talk to a human being or something real, like a real interaction. But again, everything balanced. So that was
And you just mentioned some apps that would be negative or time suckers for you. What about some of those apps, the mental health apps that actually could help in a pinch, you know?
Yes. So there are so many cool ones. One of which, what is the newest one that I use all the time? I have so many, I have to. Insight is like a meditation one. Headspace is a really good one too.
Okay.
That's one that a lot of medical professionals use, a lot of people that I know. There's another app called Calm, like CALM. And a lot of them are free. And some of them, you know, they may be a couple bucks, but to me, it's worth it. Again, you have to prioritize your you know, like mental health and self-care. To me, that's just, you know, you pay a bill, you pay your electricity every month, right? Or you pay your cable, or you pay your Wi-Fi. Like some of these things, you know, it's my therapist, like my psychiatrist, like these apps. I mean, the money for that, to me, it's money well spent. You have to prioritize that. Same when, like, you know, yoga classes or going to the gym, like you look at that to me is money very well spent. You get, you know, again, healthy body, healthy mind. And same with spending money on, you know, good food, but all that kind of stuff. But I'm trying to think of any other apps. What do I have? Insight Timer is the one I said. Calm, I said Headspace. There was this one app that, oh my gosh, what was it called? They have so many cool things out there now. Like, I feel like as soon as I learn about one, like 5 more pop up. And if anyone ever has like any questions about these apps or anything, or about like finding resources, you can feel free to, like, I'm always around.
Thank you. They also can reach out. They also can reach out to the first office or directly to me, and I will make sure I can get it to Mary Ashley if that's an issue. How do you think, you know, if someone is really struggling, what would you suggest? You know, if it's almost like a crisis. I just want people to realize that there's no shame in mental health. I mean, it's part of your whole body. You know, how important it is to get help.
So reaching out, which sometimes when you're in, depending on sort of your mental state, it can be really difficult and be really hard to reach out, because, you know, you don't either, you may think you don't want to burden someone, or you don't want, you know, you think that you're a nuisance, or whatever negative thinking that can sometimes occupy our mind that we don't have control over at times. Then that's why it's really important to surround yourself with people that know you, and know that, like, you know, maybe you talk to your mom every day and all of a sudden you're not talking to your mom. And so your mom will be like, hey, what's going on? People that will check in with you. And if you don't have that, then establishing someone in your life that can be that for you, like a therapist or a friend or a colleague or somebody that, you know, you can just talk to about these things, because all of these things these are all normal feelings. These are all normal. I mean, the anxiety, the depression, especially with COVID. I mean, we've seen so many people coming in with mood disorders, and with kids. I mean, you think about the structure, the routine of a lot of people. It's been disrupted by COVID, not being able to see their families for the holidays, all these traditions that have been altered because of COVID. I mean, it's very isolating. It's been very difficult. And it's even hard, you know, getting in to see a professional about that. So a lot of people just end up being isolated. And then half the time, no one knows until it's so far gone that they're in this deep depression. And then, you know, that they need something. And so being able to reach out, it takes a lot of strength, and it can be really hard sometimes too, but like doing that, it's not a sign. And I've always, you know, try to instill this in my patients, that you being here is not a sign of weakness at all. It is a sign of strength, that you knew that something was off and that you got here. Or, you know, you told your mom, and your mom was so concerned that she brought you here so we could talk about what's going on. And for some people, you know, me just talking to my patients and just having it in itself is like an intervention, you know, just being able to have them come in and talk and like understand, like a medical professional talk to them about what's going on and kind of validate their feelings and make them feel like this is normal, there's nothing wrong with you. That in itself is very therapeutic in itself. And sometimes it's not even that you need, you know, people need medication. Sometimes they do, but sometimes it is just like that, getting established with somebody, seeing them on a weekly basis, and just getting out of that environment that they're in, and just having someone with a different point of view, a different mindset, kind of give them some tools to kind of help themselves. Because sometimes we have a ton of tools that we can use that we just don't even know we have until you're talking to somebody else who can kind of, you know, encourage and uncover those things. So again, you know, just reaching out to whoever that is at work, family, therapy. The cool thing about everything being, you know, online now is that you can basically Google just about anything. If you have insurance, you can go through an insurance company and say, hey, what do you cover in my, you know, my area? They have counselors, therapists, psychiatrists. So there's a lot of different levels that you can get plugged in with, depending on the state that you're in, Medicaid or Medicare. They have different resources for that as well. They have local, there are a lot of social workers that, you know, volunteer their time as well for therapy. And there's a lot of different like free services depending on the area that you're in. I know the area that I'm in, we offer, the population that I deal with, patient population, is mostly uninsured. So actually like 98% of my patients are either underinsured or uninsured. And so I actually have a lot of homeless like patients that I see a lot too, and they have no resources. And so we help get them the resources that Georgia has to offer them and in the county that we're in, and provide those. So there are definitely ways, there's definitely resources out there. And I know it can be super daunting and frustrating to try to find them. But I think if just reaching out to one person, it's kind of like a ripple effect that I think the more that you kind of just talk about it, you're bound to, a door at some point is going to open. It's just kind of putting yourself out there in that. And I know it can be very vulnerable at times, but worth it, I will say.
Now, Mary Ashley, I know sometimes group therapy is helpful to people. When is it good to be in, like, I was thinking even with ichthyosis and a rare disease, I mean, obviously our private Facebook groups, they're almost like little group therapy sessions. When is it a good idea to be in a group therapy versus one-on-one with your doctor?
So again, I think it's kind of a case by case. It really depends on sort of the needs of the person. If it's sort of a collective need of like maybe a general sort of thing, kind of like talking about self-esteem or things like that, a group can be very, very helpful. I know as a first year resident physician, we have actually group therapy. We actually wanted it and we requested it, and we call it processing group. So, you know, with all the changes that we have as interns and, you know, learning how to be a doctor and all the things that we see with our patients and just like trying to figure out life, we have a facilitator who comes in. He's a psychologist, he's a PhD, and he sort of facilitates all 8 of us sort of sitting in a group and kind of just talking about stuff, like whatever comes to mind, kind of what's going on in our life. And so for sort of broad topics like that, the group can be really, really, really helpful, because sometimes you don't even know how to put into words what you're thinking about, or kind of what you're anxious about, or you hear it from somebody else. It's different. It's like it affects you in a different way, and it can be very therapeutic and very helpful, and sometimes allow you to recognize something about yourself that you didn't know. But, you know, and that is a really helpful tool versus, you know, sometimes for some people, depending on what it is, if it's something very, very specific, that one-on-one with a medical provider is going to be probably more crucial. It just kind of depends on what exactly it is. And again, you know, you have that element of confidentiality. And so people would have to know going into it that like, this is going to be, you know, an open, safe space. What happens in here stays in here, kind of thing. And you have to be willing to kind of be vulnerable amongst a bunch of people. And as long as everyone in that room is okay with it, it can be a great place to sort of to learn and to grow. I've based on my experience, I've seen a lot of people, if they're not used to therapy or seeing a therapist, it's probably not the best to like start in a big sort of setting like that at first. It may be kind of intimidating. And so maybe, but again, it really depends on you. It depends on like your comfort level, on whether, you know, because sometimes I've been in groups too, where like most of the people who want to participate, and those that don't feel comfortable don't. And that's completely fine, because that's just where they're at. So you kind of have to meet people where they are. But I think especially when it comes to something like a very common concern, group therapy can be great. That was a very long-winded explanation in a way, but it just depends.
We're okay. Now I know with our members, obviously we have, you know, brand new babies all the way to, you know, seniors, and different points at different points throughout their life, you know, the mental health aspect could change, or they need more help at different times. Do you recall growing up, like when it was difficult with ichthyosis? You know, you're so successful now. So, but like you said, I actually was glad you brought up, you know, in medical school. I mean, a lot of the students are struggling, and need, you know, you need your mind and your body working at all the time. But is there something, like, do you recall when you were growing up with ichthyosis, when there was a time, like a lot of people think it's teenage years, but young adults and the dating versus someone trying to get a job, there are all different times throughout the year that we hear from our members. And I know all the tools you mentioned obviously would apply in all those situations, but do you recall anything that helped you? I mean, you said your positive attitude. I mean, obviously it shines through the screen here. You're very positive. So, but I'm sure, you know, growing up, it wasn't always, you know, roses for you.
No, and again, I feel like it really depends on, so for me, I was one of those weird little nerd kids. So even though I was very different, I think in my mind, I didn't think I was different, because I was just kind of all over the place. And I was always, my mom to this day is like, you know, when you were a little kid, you would just go to people and say, hey, my name is Mary Ashley. What's your name? And so, I mean, before people could even make like a judgment call about me, I was already in their face like, hey, this is who I am. What's up? Like, what's going on? And so I kind of always kind of hit things head on when it came to that. And so like I said, I'm one of 4 children, and me, my other 3 siblings are not affected. No one in my family has any skin disease at all. So again, this just kind of shows you how recessive these things are. So like somewhere way down there, somewhere in my, you know, line of family had it. But so no one, I was the only one in like the county, the hospital, everything. So I definitely stood out, but I also, I was just like you know, like no one ever really played much into it. And so I kind of just got used to being kind of different, and it was annoying sometimes, but then it was like, you kind of get on with things because I didn't have an option. My mom was one of those, like, don't make excuses. Let's find a solution. Let's keep going. And that's what I did. And so for me, again, I was a super nerd. I love to learn. And so that kind of became my outlet. So I was like, hey, you know, I had control over that. A lot of things in life we don't have necessarily a lot of control over, right? And so for me, my studies was my sense of control. And so that was what I was really good at. And so I just kept going with that. And so I think that in turn, like that positive reinforcement from being that student, that really good student, it gave me that confidence even in, you know, as I was getting older. You know, sometimes I would doubt myself, but then I'd be like, you know, look, I'm making like straight A's, and I'm like on a scholarship, and I'm doing this right. Like that's more important than, like, you know, what this one kid said to me. And, you know, I mean, who is he? What is he doing with his life? Whatever. But I'm also one of those people too, that if somebody says that to me, I'm thinking, okay, so let me use this as an opportunity to educate them. But also, if they're being mean, what's going on in their life? Like, why would they talk to somebody that way? Is somebody talking to them that way? You know, I mean, and so that's how I would approach it, my mindset. When people were mean or would say snarky remarks, I'd say, you know, I would educate them. And then I would kind of feel sorry that they would talk to somebody like that. And I'd say, hey, you know, that's not a cool thing. Like if I heard somebody saying that to somebody else, I feel like I would step in and say, hey, that's not cool. That's bullying, you know, like that's, and nowadays too, you know, we see that, especially in the young kids and stuff online, like cyberbullying and stuff like that. I mean, it takes sometimes, you know, depending on where we are, what kind of a day it is or our mental state, we may not be able to stick up for ourselves. So I think that's important to be around people who can stick up for you, and which I've done for other people before. And it had nothing to do with skin disorder or anything like that. It was just because it was the right thing to do. And so I think that's the, you know, who you are as a person. That's your morality and what you think is right and wrong and that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's kind of what I did growing up. But it's, again, growing up in general is hard. It's just difficult. And so I just tried to find the things that I was really good at, and I clung to those. And so, and that's what kind of helped me identify who I was outside of the physical things, which, as you realize, as you get older, we all get old and wrinkly, you know, we're all going to, and so might as well enjoy your life and have people you care about in your life. Cause it's just, you know, so that's,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have online tools, you have doctors, you have family, you have your support group, your tribe, your first members, the attitude, all of that feeds into, you know, if the bump in the road comes, that you do have the tools to manage that, and always reach out if you ever need anything. I mean, don't hold on to it. You know, that's really important too. I was just trying to pop over here to see if there were any other questions, but, you know, you really covered an awful lot in, 50 minutes or so. I just want to give a last call to people if they have any other questions. Let me just double check over here. There's so many different groups I'm checking because people were popping in and out. I know, I feel like an air traffic controller when we have these calls. I'm just trying to really, plus it's a holiday. It's kind of hard for people too. They're getting pulled away from their barbecues or whatever. But just wanted to reiterate that, you know, always reach out, whether it's to us. And like I said, the Tele-Ichthyosis tool, your doctors can submit information on your behalf, and, you know, our experts will consult. So that's really important. I want people to remember that.
And that you're not alone. I think too, sometimes we think like, you know, it's that you're the only person. And yes, there's chances are by reaching out, you're going to connect with someone else who's been through something similar. I know that's why I've always loved psychiatry, is I think too, is just how raw and vulnerable it is, because when you get down to it, we all have similar stresses and anxieties about things that I don't know why in the world we never talked about earlier in life, because life is difficult and life is just traumatic in itself. And we really need to normalize the conversation of talking about, I mean, you know, I'm a psychiatrist and I totally talk about, hey, I've been on antidepressants before, you know, I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist. These are all normal things. You know, everyone has times where they just have negative thinking that they just can't get rid of, or they feel alone, or they feel isolated, or sometimes they can't even explain the reason they're feeling something. And that's totally normal. Those are all normal things. And that there are resources out there for that. And there's people that can connect you with those things. You just have to reach out. And
yes, that's the key to the first step is always the reaching out. And we do have wonderful members. Like you said, they've been through different things, or if you're a new family that's coming in, we have people at every step past that. And like I said, we have people that come in, they still want to help at 80, they want to help the younger generation. So there's never a reason to be alone. And I think we said at the beginning of the call, we are going to have our national conference. It was postponed twice due to COVID, but it is going to be coming back to Providence, Rhode Island in June of 2022. So we hope to see you all there. it's a wonderful, wonderful event, and in person is a heck of a lot better than through all these screens that we've been looking at.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I wanted to just post or mention that again. And I also wanted to thank Beiersdorf again. Beiersdorf is the maker of Aquaphor and Eucerin and Coppertone. I mean, there's many, many products, but our first members really use the Aquaphor and the Eucerin, and it's a long-term partnership with them, and we're so grateful to them. And I want to thank Mary Ashley again. She's, like I said, she's going into her second year of residency, right? And she's moving, and I mean, there's so much going on in her life, but she was so excited to join us for this. And we really thank you so much for your expertise, and, you're an affected member. It's just a great resource to have. And thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your busy day.
Of course.
But I think that's it. I just double checked, and it looks like we're all good. So this recording will be available again tomorrow. So if you missed it, or you're still partying with your family, and it'll live on our YouTube channel. So it'll be there as a resource for everybody. So thanks again. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. And thank you so much, Mary Ashley.
Yes, thank you, Christine. Thank you, First. Thank you, everyone. Please reach out. You're not alone, no matter what you need. First has got you, and Christine always knows how to get a hold of me. So everyone, take care of yourself, and hopefully see some of you guys at the conference next year, right? When things are hopefully getting normal soon.
Definitely. We're going to hold you to that.
Yes, I'll be there. I promise, guys. Promise.
All
right.
Oh, excellent.
Everybody take care.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.